Welcome to Top 10 S-Box. Today we've listed top 10 best strategy war games of 2025, so let's get started. Frostpunk 2 is at the 10th place of our list. Frostpunk 2, the social survival and city builder game, was primarily released for PC on September 20, 2024, though its console versions were released later, on September 18, 2025. The game was developed and published by the Polish studio 11-Bit Studios, and was spearheaded by a team including co-directors Jakub Stokalski and Łukasz Uścik, building upon the first game's foundation but shifting the focus 30 years later to resource politics and societal factions. As a video game, it does not feature a traditional movie-style starring cast, but its narrative and thematic design, which centers on the new threat of human ambition and clashing ideologies, are credited to the creative oversight of these key personnel. XCOM 2 is at the 9th place of our list. The turn-based tactical game XCOM 2 popular in 2025, its initial launch for PC occurred on February 5, 2016. Developed by Firaxis Games and published by 2K, the game's creative direction was primarily led by creative director Jake Solomon, with a writing team responsible for its narrative. The premise is set 2 decades after humanity's surrender to an alien invasion, casting the player as the commander of the revitalized, clandestine XCOM organization leading a guerrilla resistance movement against the occupying extraterrestrial regime, Advent. As a strategy game, it does not utilize a traditional starring cast of actors but relies on voice work for its major characters and features customizable, procedurally generated soldiers who form the player's primary squad. StarCraft II is at the 8th place of our list. The iconic real-time strategy game StarCraft II was initially released as the first part of a trilogy, StarCraft II: Wings of Liberty, on July 27, 2010, followed by 2 major expansions, Heart of the Swarm in 2013 and Legacy of the Void in 2015. Developed and published entirely by Blizzard Entertainment, the original game's creative leadership included Dustin Browder as the lead designer and Chris Sigety as the lead producer, while the story, which features the epic conflict between the Terran, Zerg, and Protoss races, was primarily written by lead writers Chris Metzen, Andy Chambers, and Brian Kondragan under story director Chris Metzen. Like most strategy games, StarCraft II does not have a starring cast of on-screen actors. Instead, the narrative is delivered through cinematic cutscenes and in-game voice acting, featuring a roster of experienced voice actors who bring key characters like Jim Raynor, Sarah Kerrigan, and Artanis to life. Anno 1800 is at the 7th place of our list. The critically acclaimed city-building and real-time strategy game Anno 1800 was originally released for PC on April 16, 2019, followed by a console release for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X/S on March 16, 2023. Developed by Ubisoft Blue Byte and published by Ubisoft, the project was directed by Dirk Riegert, with lead designers including Christian Schneider and Sebastian Nietschetsk overseeing the game's complex economic and production chain mechanics. Set during the Industrial Revolution, the game's focus is on managing production, logistics, and social classes in a bustling empire. As such, it features extensive voice work for various in-game characters, advisors, and opponents, but does not have a starring cast of central actors, instead utilizing professional voice talent to bring the strategic and diplomatic elements to life. Company of Heroes 3 is at the 6th place of our list. The military real-time strategy game Company of Heroes 3 was released for PC on February 23, 2023, with the console versions for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X/S following on May 30, 2023. Developed and published by Relic Entertainment, the game's core direction was guided by the leadership team, including executive producer Stephen Melee and a large team of lead designers, among whom were Bear Brabant, Brent Disbrow, and Sasha Nareen, responsible for the tactical and strategic design. The game focuses on the Mediterranean and North African campaigns of World War II, featuring a dynamic campaign map alongside traditional RTS missions. Since it is a strategy game based on controlling military units, it does not have a starring cast of actors but utilizes extensive voice acting for unit dialogue and campaign narration, with the story and various in-game events shaped by the design and narrative teams at Relic. Total War WARHAMMER III is at the 5th place of our list. The final and largest entry in the fantasy strategy trilogy, Total War WARHAMMER III, was released on PC on February 17, 2022. The game was developed by Creative Assembly and published by Sega, with Ian Roxburgh serving as the game director, leading the ambitious project that combined the turn-based grand strategy of the Total War series with the real-time tactical battles of the Warhammer Fantasy Battles universe. As an adaptation of a deep fantasy IP, the game's expansive narrative and lore, which center on the invasion of the Chaos Realms and the fate of the dying bear god Urson, were handled by the Creative Assembly design and writing teams in close collaboration with Games Workshop. Like other strategy titles, the game does not have traditional movie stars but relies on a vast team of voice actors to portray the many legendary lords, heroes, and thousands of units across the 8 diverse launch factions. Hearts of Iron IV is at the 4th place of our list. The World War II grand strategy game, Hearts of Iron IV, was released for PC on June 6, 2016, deliberately coinciding with the 72nd anniversary of the Normandy landings. Developed by Paradox Development Studio and published by Paradox Interactive, the game's initial creative direction was provided by creative director Johan Andersson, with Dan Lind serving as the project lead and lead designer. As a sandbox-style grand strategy wargame that simulates the global conflict, HOI4 does not have a traditional cast of actors but utilizes narration and unit voices, with the overall experience shaped by its deep and complex game design led by figures like Lind and Andersson, with music composed by Andreas Waldetoft. The game has maintained its massive popularity through numerous major expansions, which continue to release regularly, focusing on different regions and mechanics of the 1936-1948 era. Civilization VII is at the 3rd place of our list. The latest entry in the iconic series, Sid Meier's Civilization VIII, was released globally on February 11, 2025, for PC, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X/S, and Nintendo Switch. Developed by Firaxis Games and published by 2K, the game's overall design and creative direction adhere to the vision established by series founder Sid Meier and the Firaxis development team, though the lead director for this specific iteration is not widely publicized in the same manner as a film director. While the game's narrative elements and historical flavor which allow players to guide a chosen civilization from the Stone Age to the Space Age are handled by a dedicated writing team, including narrative director Kat Manning and others, the game relies on renowned composers like Jeff Noor and Christopher Tin for its score and features various voice actors for the in-game narrator and historical leaders, rather than a single starring cast. Age of Empires IV is at the 2nd place of our list. The medieval real-time strategy game Age of Empires IV was initially released for PC on October 28, 2021, followed by console versions for Xbox Series X/S and Xbox One on August 22, 2023, and a planned PlayStation 5 release on November 4, 2025. The game was developed by Relic Entertainment in collaboration with World's Edge and published by Xbox Game Studios. The creative direction was jointly overseen by figures like World's Edge creative director Adam S. Green and Relic Entertainment game director Quinn Duffy, with Philippe Boule serving as the narrative lead. Since Age of Empires IV is an RTS game focusing on historical campaigns and military units rather than character-driven drama, it features no singular starring cast, instead relying on extensive historical documentary footage and narration to frame its campaigns, supported by a large cast of voice actors for in-game units and historical figures. Crusader Kings III is at the top of our list. The dynastic grand strategy role-playing game, Crusader Kings III, was released on September 1, 2020, for PC, with subsequent releases for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X/S in 2022. Developed by Paradox Development Studio and published by Paradox Interactive, the game's core design and direction were led by director Henrik Farias and various project leads throughout its long development and post-launch life. As a grand strategy title, its focus is on complex character interactions, historical events, and dynastic management across the Middle Ages. Therefore, it does not have a single credited writer or director in the filmic sense, but rather a team of content designers and writers responsible for the game's thousands of event chains and narrative flavor, led by figures like game director Alexander Oltner. Similarly, it features no starring cast, relying instead on professional voice actors for the game's many diverse historical and randomly generated characters and the main narrator. We have come to the end of the video. Do not forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next video.